So you're mentioning some of the political groups like Turning Point, USA Faith that is going against woke Jesus and anyone they feel is too progressive, even in religious circles. What have you found in like white evangelical churches in terms of how they've become more political? Like, do the culture wars no longer matter as much as like MAGAism? Has there been that shift, or is it just no? We're still fighting the same culture war battles we always have, but now we're just adding a new element to it. What have you seen there?
Yeah, the culture wars matter more than ever, and they do it to justify their support for MAGA. They claim that the country's on the brink of total apocalypse because of a woke elite that wants to change your gender against their will, and kids are going to go to public schools and their libraries are filled with pornography, like all of these lies, right? And they use these lies, or they'll find some little piece of truth here, but they'll blow it up into be this huge thing, whereas it's a little thing that really doesn't affect the way the overwhelming majority of people live. And they'll use that to convince their people that this is what all liberals want, or anyone who's a rhino, anyone who's not on board with their agenda, anybody remotely to the left of them. They say they're all woke communists, and we need to save America from this, satanic agenda. And therefore, that justifies clearing the way for a more authoritarian leader who doesn't have to respect the rules, who moves the goalposts all the time, who's breaking norms, and who's violating laws. What they do is they say that America's on the brink of an apocalypse because of this wokeness in the radical left. They say democracy can't solve our problems and the rules don't apply anymore. So we need an authoritarian leader who puts himself above the law, who's going to seize the reins of power and scrap the rule of law in favor of an iron fist.
To that end, how important is Jesus anymore to the types of Christians who subscribe to any of this? Is that just an ancillary character now, or do they just warp Jesus to be more like Trump?
I'm going to leave the theological disputes to the theologians. I have to say that I have seen folks in those spaces worshiping with as much intensity and passion as anyone. But as we know, Christianity is a very diverse faith, just like every other faith is very diverse in its different expressions and interpretations. But one thing I will say is that it's hard to overstate the degree to which the politics leads the religion and not the other way around.
That's interesting. I don't know if you saw this past week. I talked about it on earlier YouTube shows and stuff, but I'm curious about what sort of resistance is coming from the Christian side to all the stuff you are writing about. We saw a little of this at Wheaton College recently when the school just said, congratulations to Russell Vought for being appointed, whatever to a high level position. And a bunch of people said, this guy is not the best of our school, basically. We should not be congratulating this dude for basically giving Trump the ammo he wants to impose Project 2025. That's a small form of resistance coming from a relatively conservative area. But is there any sort of real resistance coming up in those same circles? People who are worried that maybe their religion is being hijacked by the politics, even if they agree on a lot of it.
Yeah, listen, there are a lot of groups that are really standing up to object, but they don't have the funding and they don't have the organizational capacity. I feel like this is a movement that's as powerful as it is because of 5+ decades of investment in this project. And I feel like for a long time, folks on the other side of the political aisle, frankly, just ignored it. It made people feel uncomfortable, or they would explain it away. I remember one of George Bush's speechwriters, George W. speechwriters, he said, this is a movement that could fit into a phone booth. He said that dismissing Michelle Goldberg's very prescient, I think it was 2006 or 2007 book, Kingdom Coming, The Rise of Christian Nationalism. And he was deriding her. He's like, oh, this isn't anything we need to pay attention to. Well, this is a movement that for a long time, the Republican Party thought we can make use of them. We They deliver a lot of votes to us. And so we can, they'll be on our side. Where else are they going to go? Well, this movement, it's existed outside of the Republican Party in most respects, but it's also seized control of the Republican Party at this point, because it said, this movement leaders said to Republican politicians, if you don't support our policies, we will primary you. And so the only way that Republicans could actually win elections in these very deeply gerrymandered districts is by not letting anyone run to the right of them. So as a consequence, we have a situation today where the guardrails have completely fallen off the Republican Party, and this movement is really dominating it. Look, a true conservative movement would want to preserve institutions of value that have really served our country over time. It would want to would prize the integrity of the judiciary. It'd want to support and preserve and improve public education, not just smash it up. It would want to improve the functioning of government and not just smash it up. But this is, again, a movement that doesn't believe in democracy in the sense of a government as representative of the people. It doesn't respect individual rights in a pluralistic society. And that's really at the core. They don't respect that. So they say this kind of government doesn't give us what we want. We want to smash it up and create something new, an autocracy.
To that end, one of the things that has frustrated me to no end is the number of Democrats, moderate Democrats, who have said, well, we can work with Donald Trump because Doge and cutting fraud, that's a good idea. So let's work together on things maybe we do overlap on. One of the things you write in your book is that trying to compromise, and this is the word you use, is a delusion. This is what you said. American democracy is failing because it is under direct attack, and the attack is not coming equally from both sides. The movement described in this book is not looking for a seat at the noisy table of American democracy. It wants to burn down the house. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate the Democrats right now who are saying, no, we need to resist Trumpism in all of its forms. I don't even know what my question is. I'm wondering why more Democrats, progressives, even Republicans who oppose what Trump is doing, why haven't they gotten the message on this, that it's not just morally sound to oppose what's going on, but it's good for them politically, because I think a lot of people really want to see pushback.
Yeah, there's a lot of pushback right now. I mean, the lawyers seem really busy. A few days ago, it was 50 lawsuits, and some of them are really landing. What I've heard is that, the idea is there's going to be damage. But if we can slow roll this, look, we've got elections in less than 2 years. And a lot of the actions of the current administration are unconstitutional and against the law, unlawful. Democracy relies on professional government staffed with individuals who are subject to ethics constraints, and they act on the basis of reason and evidence in accordance with the law. And this is why the movement leaders have long ago declared war on what they call the administrative state. They want to smash it up. They want to basically, Russell Vought himself, who you mentioned, said he wants to leave government officials in trauma. They really
Jesus wanted.
What they're doing, they're actually purging the government of some of the most talented people, and people who have options, who are going to be like, I don't want to work with this. I'm going to take my fork and go work somewhere else. But what they're going to leave is loyalists and incompetence. And we see this, they justify some of their, anti-DEI measures as about merit. Well, this means, what does merit mean? They fired a 4-star general with deep experience and replaced him with a lesser known, with much less expensive 3-star general who's been sucking up to Trump and his family members for a very long time. So you've got somebody, and they're calling this anti-DEI. I mean, this DEI stuff, to be sure, there are some diversity programs and, trainings, whatever, that bear scrutiny, but that's not what this is about. This is basically about providing a smokescreen for a money grab and a power grab, and it's providing cover for racism and also for a total war on anti-discrimination law.
That's the thing that bugs me, that they always use the idea like, we want to get rid of fraud. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. But they use that as cover for what they actually want to do, which is just get rid of everything and everyone they feel is just not 100% loyal to them.
And they're also getting rid of the agencies that are intended to root, or have been created to root out fraud.
Right.
And, you know, the idea is that, you know, Trump declared himself the king, and he, you know, repeated some quote attributed to Napoleon that said, you know, the man, I don't have it in front of me, the man who saves the country, or the leader who saves the country is not breaking any laws or something.
Right. He can get away with anything. He's the king, things like that.
Sadly, you know, Anders Breivik, that horrible mass murderer, paraphrased the same, you know, quote.
So to that end, like, we have seen how this administration is destroying the government, trying to from the inside, firing people whose jobs they don't understand. But when it comes to religion, what should we expect is coming down the pipeline? Like, how are they going to enact conservative Christian beliefs and try to make them the default setting for our country?
Oh, where do we start? I mean, can we start with public schools? You know,
that literally was the next question on my list.
Yeah. I mean, this is a movement that wants to open the floodgates for taxpayer funding of religious schools. They've been trying to do this for years. It's been a longstanding aim of the movement to, you know, through vouchers and other means, but now they're developing a case in Oklahoma, St. Isidore Academy. It's a fully taxpayer-funded religious charter school, and they want to, you know, the Supreme Court has agreed to take this case. And listen, public K through 12, there's a lot of money that goes into that, you know, because the nation's children need to be educated. And movement leaders know if they can capture a portion of that, then the money will flow without end, which is one of the reasons they've been so intent on not just siphoning money from the public schools, but also fostering mistrust in public education with their sort of fake CRT stuff and alleging that public school textbooks are filled with pornography and the like. And they do that to soften the ground for wholesale assault. And at the same time, they're also trying to force their programming into public schools. We've seen this with the 10 Commandments laws, with the law in Texas that says if we'll give you extra money if you teach the sectarian Bible curriculum in public schools, and through a lot of different other means.
In Oklahoma, one of the things I was just working on today, Ryan Walters, the superintendent of public instruction there, just put out a call for bids for companies that want to create Bible-based values curriculum. As long as you can provide it, we'll give you taxpayer money for it, but it's in the early stages right now. I think you actually mentioned, and one of the books behind you is the Good News Club, which you wrote about, this organization that's launching basically after school, before school clubs to indoctrinate kids with the Bible. But I think one of the things you mentioned in that book was called the 4 to 14 window, where they really try to get them young. And now they have the mechanism to just go into public schools themselves. They don't need to do that from the outside. They can just try to infuse the Bible through public schools in a way they never could before. And that is somehow even more frightening than what you wrote about in the Good News Club.
Yeah, you know, 4 to 14 window was a strategy that Louis Bush came up with. He's one of the movement strategists. Have you ever heard of like the 1040 window? It was the area between 10 and 40 north longitude that was identified as a place where the most, they call them, unreached people groups live. So he came up with this sort of 414 window strategy. I'm sorry, 1040 window strategy, and all these he's like a sort of high level mission strategist, and all these missionaries went to those parts of the globe to establish churches and try and convert people. Well, a few years later, he came up with this idea of the 414 window, which is you get them when you're young, they're young, you can keep them for life. And he said, he wrote a book, which I have somewhere in my bookshelf. And he said, in the introduction, a fellow who wrote it named Wes Stafford, who was sort of allied with Louis Bush, who tapped to write the introduction. He said, even the Taliban places great emphasis on recruiting children. And then he said, may God join you in his fight in his battle for the little ones. And he said, Nazi Germany did this, and Taliban does this. We need to do it too.
And this is something the right accuses the left of, that you're indoctrinating them in secularism from age 4 or whatever as children. Therefore, we need to be reactionary to counter the state mandated atheism that you're already imposing on kids.
Have you spent any time in public schools? First of all, prayer has never been made illegal in public schools. Kids are free to pray whenever they want. It's the
they can read the Bible whenever they want.
They can read the Bible. It's not about that. It's really about the school cannot, they don't believe in the idea of a religiously neutral space. And to sort of understand that, I had to read a lot of theology. It was very interesting. I read some of the Dutch Reform writers, people like Von Til and other folks, and sort of this idea that there is no neutrality. You're either with our religion or, you're under the thumb of Satan, right? And this is why they don't like public schools. Public schools are meant to be religiously neutral, neither affirming nor denigrating any particular form of religion, including any particular form of Christianity. And they don't like that. They don't like that public schools teach kids how to get along with other kids, including those who are different.
They treat neutrality as oppression.
They treat neutrality as oppression. Anything that fails to affirm them is construed as oppressive to them. And this is so important for understanding how the movement works. They have persuaded many of the rank and file that conservative Christians are the most persecuted group in American society. Now, if you look at the statistics about who gets attacked, it's not conservative Christians. If you look at statistics about who gets discriminated against in the workplace or anywhere else, in healthcare settings,
I would love to have as much discrimination as conservative Christians do in Congress. Please, I'll swap places. Which group do they think is more oppressed than them that they would like to switch places with?